Hey everybody, it's Mom of Two Wife of One. Thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. Make sure you like this video before you leave. Share with whoever cares about Married at First Sight. I don't know who still even watches the show, but if you know anybody that watches it, definitely share it with them. And make sure you comment below. I love responding to you guys' comments when it comes to this stuff. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want. If you are new here, I'm Mom of Two Wife of One. I'm a content creator. I'm a mommy. I'm a wife. I'm an author. I'm a literary editor. And of course, I'm a proud Black woman. And someone who loves is probably a strong word by now, but someone who likes Married at First Sight. And if you guys are not new here, thank you guys so much for coming back. I'm trying to keep to my promise and make sure I post these videos a little earlier than I have in the past couple weeks. It's been a little difficult, but I figured it out. So let's dive right into last week's episode, shall we? So last week's episode, let me pull up my notes because y'all know I gotta make sure I have my notes so I don't steer you wrong. Last week's episode was episode 7, I believe, and the episode was called "The Honeymoon Rockier Than the Mountains." I'm going to start off by giving you all a definition of gaslighting. So I have two definitions. One definition is manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. And the other is pretty similar: deception of one's memory, perception of reality, or mental stability. We're starting with the definition of gaslighting because we're going to dive right in to talk about Lauren and Orion. Now, I have a lot of notes. I've seen a lot of comments from last week's episode, and I agree wholeheartedly with most of the things that I have read. So let me paint the picture. If you guys, and I don't want to rehash the entire relationship because I've done that for every other episode. So if you guys are not familiar with any of the drama that's happened with Lauren and Orion, please check out my other episodes, which are available on this channel. We're just going to focus on this particular episode, episode 7. So, one thing I do love about the show is that they didn't hide the drama. They didn't hide the tense moments. They dove right in with Lauren and Orion and picked up exactly where they left off the week before, where they're having dinner. And Orion made a comment about sex is off the table for him when it comes to Lauren. And he made this comment right after she said that she had had sex 2 months ago. And basically, in my mind, slut shamed her, tried to make her feel bad, and tried to basically question her intentions with the process because in his mind, why I haven't had sex in 18 months because I knew I was going to do the show, or I knew this or whatever. And it's like, obviously doesn't make any sense because 18 months ago, you stopped having sex. That's your right. That's your prerogative. You had absolutely no idea at that time that you were going to do the show. Nevertheless, you're going to get picked for the freaking show. You didn't know that stuff was going to happen. Once she found out, she didn't have sex. She was like, bet, I'm engaged. This is great. I'm ready. And so he basically was questioning it. And she knew in that moment that, okay, I'm interpreting this one way. That may not have been his intention, but I don't know him well enough to know really what his intention is and what it's not. It's literally been 5 days of marriage at this point. She does what, I'm going to say a lot of Black women, because I know I do this sometimes as well. I try to be very careful with the words that I use, especially in the heat of something. If I'm really upset, a lot of times I need to take a step back to really understand what message I'm trying to convey and clearly and intelligently say, this is how I'm feeling. I don't really care about this, or you said this, or whatever. That's what I try to do. So in this moment, they're having dinner, and she knows well enough to know that, you know what, this is not the time to have this conversation. There's a lot of stuff that you are insinuating that you're not actually saying. And I know this conversation can get heated based off of how I'm already feeling. So she asked him, I think I want to have a quiet dinner. And mind you, this all happened right before the food got there. So she's like, I think I'd rather have a quiet dinner. And, you know, she was like, you're coming off mildly judgy. I wouldn't have said mildly. I thought he was very judgmental on what he said. She asked for a quiet meal because she felt like he was flip-flopping in the conversation. Like, oh, I said this, but it didn't have anything to do with the fact that you had sex. It's just, oh, you know, I just decided sex is off the table. And it's like, everyone has the right to change their mind, and I get that. But the fact that that comment came right after she said she had sex is kind of weird, especially because before you guys had that conversation about how long it's been since you both have had sex, you were talking about foreplay and where you like to be kissed, and this is what I'm going to do to you, and I'm getting closer to you, and I can't wait till we get to this point. So you guys were basically talking about it like it would happen that night or it was going to happen soon, until you completely flipped it, and now you're throwing cold water on the whole thing. And again, you have the right to change your mind, but it's very suspicious that that comment came right after her comment. It's like, she's not dumb. We're not dumb either. Kind of made it clear exactly what you meant. Kind of going back and forth like, oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. Well, I kind of meant it that way. Oh, but that's not what it's like. No, she's too grown and she ain't got time for that. So she actually started crying in this conversation. And I understood the tears. The tears were not tears of how could you? No, they weren't tears of embarrassment. It wasn't tears of regret. It was tears of anger, because she knew in that moment that she was getting increasingly upset with him. And I know for me, if I'm like at the height of my anger, like really, really, really upset, which I don't get often, but when I get to that point of being extremely angry, it definitely makes me cry. And I'm going to assume that Lauren is similar to me, where we don't like necessarily crying in front of other people. We know sometimes it can't be helped, but especially when you're pissed off, those tears can be misinterpreted by the person who pissed you off. And you don't want to do it in front of them, because you're like, they don't know that these tears are not because I feel bad for what I've done or feel sad. It's because I'm so angry with you that I know the words I want to say, but I know those words are going to be counterproductive. And not only do I know the words I want to say, you are now my husband, and I need to make sure that I don't speak to you any kind of way. You're not just some guy I'm going on a second date with. You're not some random guy in a club. You're actually someone I have made this commitment to. So I have to be very, very careful with what I say to you, because I can't treat you like anybody I've had in my past. I've never had a husband before, but I'm trying to make this marriage work. So I need to get myself together. And I can't do that in this moment. Because she asked him for a quiet meal. He was like, well, being quiet doesn't really work for me. And she's basically like, okay, but this isn't the time. She's like, I agree we need to have this conversation, because there's definitely a couple things happening here that I'm not comfortable with, but this isn't the time to have those conversations. I don't think either of us are in a place where we can really hash things out the way we need to. And I hated that he just kind of kept pressing the issue. It's like, dude, like, read the room, read the vibe, and read your wife. She's telling you this is not the time. And the thing is, she's proven that she's not afraid of having these tough conversations. She's had tons of tough conversations with him in these past 5 months. So she's obviously not afraid of doing that. So if she tells you, hey, we need to talk about this, let's table it for later, she's going to come back to it later and talk to you about it. So you could have at least given her that moment and said, you know what, instead of a quiet meal, why don't we just take the food to go and give each other our space, because it seems like we both have a little bit of thinking to do, and then we can come back to the conversation. That's what he should have done as the husband, as the head of the household. He should have taken charge in that way, noticed his wife was getting upset, noticed that she was getting withdrawn, and just been like, you know what, okay, separate corners, we'll take the food to go, and we'll just kind of do that. If he had done that, she would have had a lot more respect for him in that moment, because she would have seen that, okay, he's taking that initiative as the head, as my husband, to make sure I have the space that I need. He took care of this, and he's respecting the fact that I need my space. That would have changed a lot if he had done something that small. But again, he's never been married before either, so maybe he's not used to operating in that way. Okay. Either way, I understood why she was upset, right? And she told him also while she was crying that she did not feel safe discussing certain things with him, because if I'm telling you the truth about this and now you're coming back with judgment, now I don't feel safe to tell you the truth about things. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm not going to feel comfortable discussing certain things with you if you're not going to just listen with the intent of understanding, as opposed to listening with the intention of judging me for my actions, which is fair. The one thing I can say about Lauren says what she means and means what she says. She doesn't bite her tongue. She doesn't hold her feelings back. I think she's respectful for the most part of the things that she says, but she's going to be honest. Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And I feel like she's given him that grace time and time again. When he said stuff that maybe she doesn't agree with, she still listens and is like, okay, you know what? This is my husband. This is how he feels about something. We don't have to agree on it, but I'm going to respect what he has to say. She's shown that she's going to be that way and treat him like the husband she wants him to be. He's not doing that for her. We're going to get there. It was a lot more, and it was infuriating, to say the least. Okay. I also love the fact that she was calling him on his stuff. He started to apologize while they were still at dinner. And he started by saying, I'm sorry if you felt this way. Before he could finish, she was like, you are too mature to know that that is not a real apology. So if you're going to apologize, try again. Don't ever say to me again, I'm sorry if you felt this way. You know good and daggone well that is not a real apology. I was like, tell him, Lauren, because that's not. And the thing is, words have so much power and meaning behind them. And you have to be so incredibly careful with the way you word things. Telling someone, like, let's say I feel offended by someone. If you tell me, hey, I'm sorry if you felt offended, that means you're questioning my offense. You're questioning what I'm telling you that I feel. What you should say is, I'm sorry that I offended you. Now, granted, you're not saying that I meant to do this. You're saying, okay, that wasn't my intention, but I acknowledge how you feel. So I'm so sorry that I made you feel this way. Even if you didn't intentionally do it, the result is still that I feel offended because of something that you said. So changing that, just changing one word, changing I'm sorry if you felt to I'm sorry I made you feel, that makes a huge freaking difference. Because again, the difference between those two sentences is that on one hand, you are acknowledging what I felt. On the other hand, you're not. And it's as simple as that. So I love the fact that Lauren does not let him get away with this side talk, and she just calls him on it. She's very, very much an alpha woman. She is very much an alpha woman. I thoroughly appreciate it. I don't think Orion, even though he talks all the time about I was raised by strong women and blah, 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 he doesn't react well, though, to a strong woman, which is interesting. And I think because, and he kind of alluded to that when he was at the wedding reception talking to Lauren's father about how he was raised, with a strong mom, has a strong sister, but because he mainly had these strong maternal figures in his life, I think that he doesn't necessarily want that. He doesn't want a woman to run over him. And it's not a matter of running over somebody, but being an alpha woman doesn't mean you're going to run over your husband, because I think I'm an alpha woman in a lot of ways. So it's not about running over your husband, but it's about establishing your own voice in your household. That is not a bad thing. And it seemed like he wasn't really taking well what she was saying. And it was just weird. So, okay. Said he was flip-flopping. He talked about the intention. He implied that her having sex before she started the process means that she may not have had the right intention with this process. It's like, that makes no sense. Because, and I said this in the last video, just because you have entered this process of Married at First Sight, you filled out the 200 question survey on Married at First Sight, that does not mean that you are going to go to the next level. I'm assuming there's at least 2 or 3 levels to the show before you're actually chosen. Filling out the form doesn't mean that you're going to be chosen for the show. And in the midst of that, she's not dead. Like, she still has needs. She's still doing what she needs to do. As long as she's been responsible about it, who cares? It was dumb. And I basically said that I'm glad that she's forcing him to be honest, and she's not pussyfooting around and that she's not accepting him to pussyfoot around what he means, and what he thinks he means. She did tell him that she felt unsupported and unheard, and she feels like he lacks consistency with how he claims he feels about sex. And she's extending grace to him, but she still feels very unsettled. So they basically had the deeper conversation after dinner. It wasn't on camera. The next morning, I think he wasn't beside her. She went to the gym. And when they came back, they kind of discussed a little bit more. And she was like, I'm giving you grace. She was like, I've seen you at your best moments. So seeing you at your worst moment at dinner, I know that that's not completely who you are. I know that we all have our moments, and I'm not going to judge who you are. I'm not going to judge your character based off of one moment that you had. I've seen enough good moments to know that that good part of you that I've seen consistently for the most part, that's who you really are. But we're all allowed to have bad moments because we're human. She's giving him all the grace in the world. She's saying, hey, you effed up. And yes, I'm still kind of in my feelings, and I know you're still feeling a little tender about it too, but we're going to get through this. This was just one blip, and we're just going to continue to work through this. This is what she tells this man. He is still so upset and just crying. And I think he eventually apologized to her and all that stuff. Yeah. He apologized to her and things seemed like kind of okay. And he was like, I'm emotionally depleted. And she told him again, she's not going to hold it against him. They're both still feeling their emotions, which I think is fair. Even if you talk about something and you come to some kind of agreement, that doesn't mean that the height of what you're feeling immediately goes away. It may take some time for it to die down a little bit. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. That's, again, we're all human. This is how things go. He finally admitted that he dropped the ball and that he wasn't there supporting his wife in the way that she needed, right? And she told him she needs consistency and all that stuff. And he's in his head now this time, and he's not as talkative and he's not being as physical with her. At least before, they were holding hands, they were always hugged up. Now he's not making that effort to be as physical with her, to touch her, to whatever. And I kind of was questioning that. I'm like, is he feeling like, him being caught up in his feelings, is he feeling guilt? Is he feeling disappointment? Like, I wasn't quite clear, because I felt like in that situation of them having that conversation, Lauren is the one who was done wrong. So Lauren should be the one who's pulling away and not wanting to be physical and all that stuff. The fact that he's pulling away seems really weird to me. One thing I did appreciate is that in the midst of them going through this, and again, him feeling this way and her trying to reassure him, side note, I really hate that for us, for women. And all women don't do this, but I do know that's just in our nature to do this. In a situation like this, when your husband is the one that hurt you, she did all the right things. She spoke up for herself. She was clear about what he did or didn't do. She didn't let him get away with like not apologizing or not acknowledging what's taking place. But then once all of that happened, she's back to now comforting him. And I don't think that's fair. In this situation, she was the one that was wronged. Why is she now in a position where she has to comfort this man to make him feel better about what he did to her? I really, really hate that for Lauren. But I understand that as a wife, especially as a new wife, she doesn't want to see her husband in pain. She wants to make sure he's good. But also, I can appreciate that she is not trying to make him feel good by downplaying how she felt. She's not doing that. So she's still sticking to her guns. But again, I hate the fact that she is now in a position where, I got to make you feel better because you feel bad about what you said and did. They called Dr. Pia, one of the experts on their honeymoon. And I did like this. This has not happened in a very long time on this show. And I'm always a huge proponent of the couples, whether on the honeymoon or not, if you feel like things are going wrong, or you feel like, you're not being heard, something is wrong, there's kind of a glitch in the matrix, so to speak, call the experts. That's what they're there for. It doesn't matter if you're on your honeymoon. It's better to deal with these issues as they come up, as opposed to, harboring these negative feelings and allowing it to fester up until you get back home, because they don't see the experts again until they move into their apartment. So it's not going to be for a few days. So I love the fact that they called Dr. Pia while they were on their honeymoon to kind of get advice from her about how they can move past this. And let me see, what did she say? Orion told Dr. P he feels like he failed Lauren in that moment, and he said that's why he's crying, that I can't believe I failed her. He's beating himself up, and he said it stems from protecting his mother and sister from his stepfather. And as soon as he said that, my reaction was, okay, so there's some childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with. And I feel like Dr. Pia, being in that professional space, that probably was a light bulb for her as well. Because a lot of people don't know or don't acknowledge or don't believe that a lot of stuff that they went through in their childhood is going to impact how they are in relationships as they get older. Whether it's a relationship with a lover, with a spouse, with a friend, with a coworker. All that stuff can be impacted by childhood trauma. And for him, it seemed like his stepfather was pretty verbally abusive, I guess, to his mother and sister. I don't know if he was physical, but he did kind of make a connection between harsh language and I guess the way the stepfather talked to the mother and sister and how Lauren talked to him. And, obviously she had no way of knowing that. And she was like, he told me that. And I was like, okay, I understand. When I get upset, I do get heated in the moment. And I do, I'm not necessarily yelling and throwing things, but I can be harsh in the things that I'm saying. I can kind of be quick with my mouth. He was like, so I will try to be more aware of that and not do that to trigger you. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say what I need to say, but I'll try to make sure I use my words carefully. Right. And Dr. Pia basically told them, okay, yeah, this was a blip, but focus on all the good things that you guys have sown into your marriage. Yes, you're going to have some issues. And whenever you guys have a fight, she basically did some analogy about the bank and deposits versus withdrawals, but basically focus on putting more into your marriage. That's basically what she said. So after they had that conversation, Lauren asked Orion, do you feel better? What do you need? And he's like, I think I just need some space. I need some time. She's like, okay. And gave him space. And I'm like, still didn't get it. It came about a little later. I understood a little bit better, but I still didn't really get it in that moment. One thing I did say is that they need to have fun on this honeymoon, just the two of them. All they've done on this honeymoon is have these really serious conversations. They've laid in a hammock and they've been in the water, not swimming twice. This is all they've done. Everyone else at least has had some kind of adventure. They've painted. They have done stuff in the water, like water sports. They've gone paddleboarding. Lauren and Ryan have done none of that. I don't know if it's because that's just not their zhuzh. I don't really understand, but they literally have done nothing like fun and adventurous. And I'm like, maybe y'all need something like that. And even when they've been in the water and they're not swimming, they're still having the deep, serious conversations in the freaking water. So all they've done is talk. And then again, talking not a bad thing, but you're on your honeymoon. Mix it up with some of the fun stuff. You can have all these tough conversations when you get back home. Go scuba diving or something. Like, I thought that was kind of weird that they're literally the only couple that hasn't done anything fun. Thought that was strange, but whatever. Right? So I did say the physical distance between them is very, very glaring. Even when they're walking beside each other before, they're at least holding hands. Now there's like this much space in between them when they're walking beside each other. It's like, wow, that's a big difference for them. And I feel like the longer you let that space exist, the harder it is to get back to where you guys were. Right? So they're at dinner with the other couples. This is like the final dinner with everybody. And they're kind of recapping their honeymoon. And, you know, Lauren was like, you know, it's been a roller coaster, but I'm looking forward to getting back home. And I think things will kind of even out a little bit when we get back to our real lives and it should be okay and blah, 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 blah. This is what I didn't like. So Orion pretty much said the same thing at dinner, but then when he did his talking head, he was like, you know, honestly, I haven't been able to get Lauren's comments out of my mind, the racist comments that she made. You know, it hasn't left me and it's still bothering me a lot. If you guys don't remember, it just made me upset. They had a conversation maybe the first or second day of their honeymoon. So at this point, we're talking at least 5 days ago. She made, and mind you, she didn't make this comment like she's calling him a racial slur. They were having a conversation about racial slurs because she asked if he had ever said the N-word. He was like, yeah, I said it, you know, when I was younger as part of a song, but I know better now, I don't say it. She's like, okay, didn't get upset. She was like, all right, well, you're young. And so, you know, he is American Indian. He mentioned a racial slur. So mind you, she didn't call him this racial slur. She was like, when I was younger, there were things I probably said that I shouldn't have. And then they got on the topic of slurs and she was like, whatever. She said the word. She said redskin, right? She was not calling him redskin, but it was like in that moment she remembered, oh, redskin is a slur. That's a slur, right? Getting more information about it, right? Not calling him that at all. But the fact that it came out of her mouth, he apparently had a big problem with her even saying the word. And it's like, and I think in his mind, he thought she was making a joke, like at his expense. But it's like, if you go back and look at that episode, it's very clear that she's not making a joke. She genuinely does not know what that term means. And once he explains the term to her, she's like, oh, okay. I'm so glad you explained that to me. I understand. I'm so sorry. I'm sure you've had a lot of bad experience with that word. And I hate that you've gone through that. And, you know, she's being very genuine because, again, she legitimately did not know what the heck that term meant, right? Didn't know. And he turned that conversation into, you know, he was getting heated. He was getting upset with her. And again, this is why I said childhood trauma thing. This goes back to some time in his childhood where someone has called him that one time, multiple times, whatever. He took that childhood trauma from that word and put it on his wife, who was not calling him that as a slur, who was genuinely trying to educate herself on what this word means, right? But again, his childhood trauma that he has not come to grips with, he's putting all of that into his marriage. So now he's telling her after dinner, he told her that I've never been able to get over that comment. And, you know, it's still in me. I can't get over it. This is my issue. And this is Lauren's issue. After we had that conversation was on camera. They talked about it several times afterwards. Are you okay? I know that was a difficult conversation. Are you and I good? Constantly asking him every single time. No, we're good because I understand this. We're good. I know you weren't calling me that. We're good. Blah, blah, blah. You keep saying you're good. So all I have is your word at this point that, oh, if he says he's good, he's good. I have no reason to think that he's not, because he's telling me to my face, oh, that I'm good. So she's like, what are you talking about? You said you were good multiple times, and now you're not good. And now you're saying you can't get over it all. So what am I supposed to do in this moment? He turned it from I can't get over it to you are ruining this. No, not ruining this marriage. You don't have my back. And you are the one who is basically like ruining this marriage, and you're not doing what you need to do. And all of this stuff, everything is being put on Lauren's shoulders, right? So, and she said she understands him being upset. She's like, but him pulling away is making her feel unmarried and unsafe and alone. Right? And so Orion called Pastor Cal to just talk to him about it, I guess. And I was like, Dr. P, it wasn't enough. Because if this had really been bothering you, we'd have brought it up when you're talking to Dr. P as well. But you didn't. So whatever. He told Pastor Cal the weight of the joke has sat with him. And he's like, and I felt vile. And it's hard to accept the apology. And I'm like, she apologized days ago. And I put in here, don't use recent events to justify not accepting her apology. And he said to Pastor Cal, he doesn't think that he's had the chance to really express how he feels. I'm going to go through the rest of this, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think is going on. Okay. Lauren sat with Pastor Cal. She says and also in the moment of them having this conversation, she took her ring off and said she wanted a divorce. Now, I will say that's not the move to make. You're not supposed to ever play with the divorce word. Don't throw the divorce card out there because you're frustrated. So that's the only part that I'll be like, okay, she was wrong for that. Everything else is his fault. We'll put that out there. But she recognized that was the wrong move. And Pastor Cal said, it sounds like you guys haven't really discussed your real emotions. And this is some really heavy stuff for this early in the marriage. But I think you guys should talk about it now. Just talk about how you actually feel about the whole thing, right? So, because originally he was talking to them one-on-one. Then he's like, let's talk to you guys together. Let's like get everything out in the open. And mind you, this is also the day they're supposed to be leaving, because the other couples had their bags packed and are downstairs waiting for Lauren and Orion so they can all go to the airport together. They're like, where the heck are they? We don't know what's going on. This is the day they're out freaking leaving and all this is happening, right? So, one thing Pastor Cal said, Pastor Cal, he be dropping some gems, y'all. He said, every successful couple has to fight through imperfection to be perfectly perfect for each other. I was like, woo! Pastor Cal got words, y'all. I was like, oh, that's a good one. Orion said Lauren violated his culture and has offended him, his family, and his entire community. And when they see this episode, they're going to have opinions on what she said, and it's going to affect him and his whole community on a very deep level. I'm not in that community, so I'm trying very hard to be respectful. It's hard to be respectful because Orion is like rubbing me wrong, and it's not his community, it's just him specifically. So I'm trying to be respectful in the things that I say and choose not to say. That's what he thinks. Lauren said on her end, she has not only apologized profusely, on her own, she has done research on the Navajo culture. She's done research on racial slurs and also done research on terms of endearment. She's doing her part to try to understand as much as she can about his culture so that she doesn't make a mistake like that again. She's doing the extra work. She didn't just apologize. She's going that next step, right? And Pastor Cal's like, oh, okay, that's good. For Orion, though, that is not enough for him because he can't get past what was said, and he can't forgive her because the first time he was ever insulted as a kid was when somebody used that term. Again, your childhood trauma that you have not healed from, because this is the third time now that you done brought up something from your past. First, it was, what was it? First, it was the fact that your stepfather used harsh words. Now it's about somebody calling you this as a kid. Like, he's bringing up his past a lot, and it's proof that you have not been healed from that stuff. If you have been, then the stuff that she said or didn't say wouldn't impact you the way that it is. And you would be able to at least accept her apology, right? And so she's crying because she's like, literally, she's telling Pastor Cal, there's literally nothing that I can do. She was like, I could lead an entire seminar on the Navajo culture based off of my research and present it to the entire world, and he still would not care. He still would just be like, whatever. So, and he basically was like, she was like, there's basically nothing I can do. And Pastor Kyle was like, I agree. I mean, no, Ryan was like, there's nothing she can do. Like, I can't get over this. I cannot get past this. This is what I think it really is. Okay? Follow me, if you will. When he made that comment to Lauren, when it came about sex, right? And she got into him and was like, no, you're judging me. And you need to stand 10 toes down. And if you really feel this way, stop flip-flopping, blah, 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 blah. Had that whole thing, right? He hated the fact that now on camera, people are going to think that I am judgmental. They're going to see that I, quote unquote, failed my wife, failed my marriage. He hated the fact that that was going to be his narrative. Hated the fact that he could even say that he failed her, because in his mind, I'm sure he thinks he's this amazing guy who's wanted to be married. He said this, he's wanted to be married for his entire life. This has always been something he's wanted for himself. So the fact that he is now married, he probably thought he was going to be the best ever at this because he's wanted for so long. The fact that he made a mistake, mind you, wasn't a huge mistake, but the fact that he made this mistake and was not perfect, and on camera it's shown that he was not perfect in that way as a husband, he was so distraught by that it caused him to cry, caused him to be emotional, caused him to pull away because, oh, I can't believe I treated you like that. I wasn't able to protect you, blah, blah, blah. It went from, I feel so bad, to, I can't allow people to think that I'm that person. I need to flip it around and put it back on Lauren so they can see, oh, well, actually, that probably all happened. I probably said those things because I'm not healed from what she said 5 days ago, even though she apologized profusely and did blah, blah, blah. I can't get past that. That's probably why I said what I said to her. It's like, no, that I don't believe it for 1 second. I don't believe, again, yes, you can have issues with that word. I understand that part completely. I really, really do. But you are making excuses because you don't like how you looked in that moment. Even though she gave you grace, she did not hold it over your head. She didn't think this is your true character. She was like, this, you got out of character for a little bit. But he couldn't even stand that fact. He couldn't even let her enjoy being right in her anger before she had to turn around and comfort him for being upset, that he made her freaking upset. He is not a terrible person. I'm not going to say that. I don't believe him, though. I don't believe what he said for a minute. I don't believe his stance, like, oh, they're going to judge me for this. I don't believe any of that whatsoever. I really, truly don't. And I feel terrible for Lauren, because if a man says, well, that's it, I can never get past this, then there's no point in you guys. And they showed a clip from them from next week sitting in their apartment. Why? I doubt if they're actually going to move in together. Like, I seriously don't see that happening. But why are y'all still going through the charade? For what? You said that's it, that's all, you ain't gonna ever forgive this chick, and she's not about to stay in the marriage where this man ain't never gonna forgive her and is constantly gonna bring this up. That's not fair to her. Again, I don't believe anything he's saying. I really did not like him in this episode. Didn't like him last episode either. I don't believe anything this man is saying. He's gaslighting her. He's terrible right now as a husband. They're awful. I'm just gonna leave it at that. That was the biggest part of the whole episode, honestly. Cameron and Claire, they seem to be doing okay. They're both looking forward to moving in with each other. One thing I liked when they were talking about moving in with each other, she was like, yeah, I'm happy to get back to my old routine. I just, I thrive off routine. I thrive off doing this. I'm really excited to get back to that. And whenever she made comments like that, he would be like, oh yeah, I'm excited too. I'm more excited to see how our routines are going to mesh together. I felt like he, not in a bad way, but his comments were kind of reaffirming for her, oh, that's right, my routine is not going to be my routine anymore. It's going to be a little different because now there is a husband there. It's not just going to be me doing everything. And she talked about, I'm really independent. He was like, no, I'm independent too. He's like, and I love the fact you can do things, for yourself, but I'm also happy that I'll be there to help out with some things that maybe, I can kind of lighten your load a little bit. So he kept kind of inserting himself in the things that she was saying, which I love, because I feel like when you get married at first sight, it's hard to remember that aspect of marriage, that, oh, that's right, when I get back to home, it's not my home anymore. Now I'm going to be moving in with you permanently in an apartment, and we actually have to share stuff. And now when I go grocery shopping, I have to go grocery shopping for two of us. It's not just me anymore. So I like the fact that was happening in the conversation. He got hurt. Excuse me. He got hurt in one of the water sports. His ear is messing up. He had to go off. When I say off campus, he had to go off the hotel grounds to go to a hospital to get checked out. She had a mandatory meeting for work. I thought someone should have gone with him. I understood why she couldn't. I thought it was kind of weird that, no one went with him. So I thought that was messed up. But he came back in time for the couples dinner with everybody else, brought her this insanely huge, like roses. It looked like it was at least 3 dozen roses and some other flowers in there. And it was a very romantic gesture. She was very excited and happy. Oh, that's so sweet. Yay, yay, yay. One thing I do want to say is that I feel like a growing trend this season is going to be people going to Claire to confide in her about stuff that they are experiencing in their marriage. And I assume they're probably going to do it because Claire's a therapist. I get that. She's a therapist. That means she's probably a very good listener, is going to give you insight. But keep in mind, y'all, Claire don't know nothing about being married either. So you can talk to her all you want, and I'm sure she'll give you good advice. But it's like, girl, she don't know what it means to be married. So she's just as lost as y'all are. I just want to kind of put that out there because I really see that becoming a trend. Because Lauren confided to Claire when she took off her engagement ring and all this other stuff. That's pretty much all I have with them. Nothing exciting. Nothing exciting happened with anybody for the most part. Like Lauren and Orion took over most of the episode, as they should, because there was a lot to unpack there. Let me see. Do I have notes on other people? I feel like I should. Austin and Becca, they still aren't talking about big things, like important things. She brought up religion, and he kind of joked about it. I was like, oh, we can just talk about it later. So they end up kind of discussing it, where she said, I think she's agnostic. And I think he is Catholic, maybe. But I was kind of surprised because I'm like, wouldn't that come up in the vetting process? I'm assuming that's a question on the questionnaire, right? I would imagine it is. I doubt if they wouldn't have put that somewhere in the questionnaire or somewhere in the interviews with all the experts. That had to have come up. But I guess it's not just a matter of what your religion is, like a religion you were born with, as opposed to what religion you practice. I think it's probably also a question of how, quote unquote, religious are you? Because you can say all day long, I'm Jewish, I was born Jewish, but that doesn't mean that you go to temple. That doesn't mean you read I don't know the book. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm ignorant, but I don't know. The Torah, I think it's the Torah. But it doesn't mean that you do anything. It doesn't mean you practice. That was the word I was looking for. It doesn't mean that you actively are a practicing Jewish person. You can just be born Jewish. So again, I'm assuming those conversations have come up during the process before they were even matched. So I thought it was kind of weird that they're just talking about it now. But I understand Becca's frustration that they seem to joke a lot. And they have fun together, but none of the serious topics have really come up. Topics that she thinks, we should talk about right now. And so they're basically focusing on having fun on the honeymoon, which I'm all for. I think that's a great thing. And I'm going to kind of wait for those bigger conversations to happen later. Because I guess they're like, we're building a foundation. So when the bigger conversations happen, we have a foundation to go back on. This foundation of already liking each other, already trusting each other, already just, seeing each other as husband and wife. So when we handle or have any conflict in the future, we can kind of deal with that then. I think that's kind of what it was. And they talked a little bit about moving in. She talked about there being a learning curve and they're going to tackle one task at a time, blah, blah, blah. Nothing exciting happened with them either. Everything's about Lauren and Ryan, guys. Emily and Brennan, they talked a little bit about religion as well. They both want 2 kids. They played basketball together, and that's literally it. Nothing of interest happened really with anybody else. Next week they all move to their apartments, and typically what happens during that episode is that they all get the chance to go to their new spouse's old apartment or old house, so they can kind of get a glimpse of how they lived. They can see what kind of stuff we're going to transfer to our new apartment to make it our apartment. And typically this is also when the experts, specifically Pastor Kyle, comes to visit all the couples in their new apartment to see how things are going, to talk about any issues that came up over the honeymoon or since they moved in. And if no issues have come up, then they'll talk about, he'll mention intimacy. Have you guys had sex yet? Is anything holding you back from that? Make sure you guys have these difficult conversations if you haven't already, to kind of speed things along a little bit. So that's what's going to happen next week. That's pretty much all I have for this week, you guys. I don't have any faith at all with Lauren and Orion. I think Orion just needs desperately some deep therapy to get through this childhood trauma that he has not tapped into, apparently. Feel terrible for Lauren. I think we're probably going to see Michael again at some point. I don't think it'll be next week, but at some point I think we're going to see Michael again. And that's pretty much it. Lauren and Ryan, I don't know what to tell y'all. if you saw the episode, comment below. Let me know what you guys thought about that. All the exchanges between Lorna and Orion, not just that one conversation, all of the conversations that you've seen them have either through the season or just from this past episode. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about Orion and how he handled everything? What do you guys think about his excuse that, oh, it's the comment, I can't get past it? Do you believe that? Because again, I don't. But either way, that is a review and recap of Married at First Sight, Season 17, Episode 7. Make sure, again, that you like this video, share my content, subscribe to my channel, and comment below. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.